How Odin Lost His Eye, retold by Catherine E. Sillo, narrated by Mr. Bresciani. Once, when the world was still very young, Odin sat on his throne in the most beautiful palace in Asgard. His throne was so high that he could see over all three parts of the world from where he sat. On his head he wore a helmet shaped like an eagle. On his shoulders perched two black ravens, called Memory and Thought, and at his feet crouched two snarling wolves. The great king gazed thoughtfully down on the earth below him. He had made the green land that stretched out before his eyes. With the help of the other gods, he had made men and women who lived on that earth. And he felt truly like the All-Father he was called. The fair elves had promised they would help his children of the earth. The elves were the tiny people who lived between heaven and earth. They were so small that they could flit about doing their work unseen. Odin knew that they were the artists who painted the flowers and made the beds for the streams. They took care of all the bees and the butterflies, and it was the elves who brought the gentle rain and sunshine to the earth. Even the ugly dwarves, who lived in the heart of the mountains, agreed to help. They forged iron and metals, made tools and weapons. They dug gold and silver and beautiful jewels out of the earth. Sometimes they even cut the grain and ground the flour for the farmers on the earth. All seemed to be going well. Odin found it hard to think of evil times, but he knew that the frost giants were only waiting for a chance to bring trouble to his children. They were the ones who brought cold and ice to the world and shook the earth in anger. They hated Odin and all the work of the gods. And from high on his throne, Odin looked down beyond the earth, deep into the gloomy land of his enemies. He saw dark figures of huge men moving about. They looked like evil shadows. He, the king of the gods, must have more wisdom. It was not enough just to see his enemies. He must know more about them. So Odin wrapped his tall figure in a blue cloak. Down from his throne he climbed. Down the broad rainbow bridge he strode and across the green earth till he came to the roots of the great evergreen tree. There, close by the tree, was a well full of clear water. Its surface was so still it was like a mirror. In it, one could see pictures of things that had happened and things that were going to happen. But beside the well sat an old man. His face was lined with the troubles of the world. His name was Mimir, which means memory. No one, not even the great Odin, could see the pictures in the well unless he first drank some of its water. Only Mimir could give the magic drink. Aged Mimir, Odin said to the old man, you who hold the knowledge of the past and future in your magic waters, let me have but one sip. Then I can know enough to protect the men and women of the earth from the hate of the giants. Mimir looked kindly at Odin, but he did not smile. Although he spoke softly, his voice was so deep it reminded Odin of the distant roar of the ocean. The price of one drink from the well is not cheap, Mimir said. And once you have drunk and gazed into the mirror of life, you may wish you had not, for sorrow and death as well as joy are pictured there. Think again before you ask to drink. But once the king of the gods had made up his mind, nothing could change it. Not afraid to look upon sorrow and death. What is your price, aged Mimir? Odin asked. You are great and good, Odin, answered Mimir. You have worked hard to make the world. Only those who know hard work may drink from my well. However, that is not enough. What have you given up that is very dear to you? What have you sacrificed? The price of a drink must be a great sacrifice. Are you still willing to pay the price? Odin put his hands up to his bright blue eyes. Those two eyes had gazed across the world from his high throne in the shining city of the gods. His eyes had taught him what was good and beautiful, what was evil and ugly. But those eyes had also seen his children. the men and the women of the earth, struggling against the hate of the giants. One eye was a small sacrifice to win knowledge of how to help them, and without another thought, Odin plucked out one of his eyes and handed it to Mimir. Then Mimir smiled and gave Odin a hornful of the waters of his well. Drink deeply, brave king, so you may see all that you wish in the mirror of life. Odin lifted up the horn to his lips and drank. Then he knelt by the edge of the well and watched the pictures passing across its still and silent surface. When he stood up again, he sighed, for it was as Mimir had said. He had seen sorrow and death as well as joy. It was only the glorious promise at the end that gave him courage to go on. So Odin, the great king of the gods, became one-eyed. If you can find Mimir's well, you can see Odin's blue eye resting on the bottom. It is there to remind men and women of the great sacrifice he made for them.